The Australian Foreign Minister says ties with China won't be damaged after reports Chinese hackers have targeted Australia's spy agency. Local media are reporting that hackers based in China stole the blueprints to Australia's new intelligence headquarters. The breach includes sensitive technology and communication systems. The Australian government has refused to comment directly on the allegations. We're joined now by David Vaile. He's in Sydney and he's the Executive Director of the Cyberspace Law and Policy Centre at the University of New South Wales. Mr. Vaile, thanks for joining us. Our correspondent, Andrew Thomas, was just telling us that it's not just the plans for the new spy agency that were hacked, but also very sensitive government information. How serious is this breach, do you think?
Well, one of the things that's interesting is that it's sort of been revealed and it's now in the public domain. I think, governments of all persuasions and other entities, including organised crime and others, have been in the business of surveillance and spying and espionage for a long time. So in one sense, it's sort of no secret that that sort of thing happens. What's interesting is that it appears to have, if the report's correct, sort of successfully breached some of the defences and procedures of some of the capitals of Australia's more significant government agencies and departments, including Foreign Affairs, Attorney Generals and some of the law enforcement services. And I think the fact that it appears to be affect a number of different agencies suggests it may not be a one-off sort of process, but in a sense you'd expect it not to be sort of one-off. But nevertheless, it's caused a lot of people to sit back and sort of wonder what's going on, I suppose.
Exactly. What do you think the hackers could actually do with this information?
Well, it seems to be, if the report's correct, sort of a number of different hacks with a range of different information. Obviously, it's very uncomfortable to have the plans for your intelligence service headquarters leaked, but the story does also remember that both US and British embassies in various places, and even some of the buildings in their own cities, have been breached in the past. So in that sense, it's not unheard of. Some of the other material appears to have some strategic or commercial significance. I suppose it may not be the question of the individual documents, because presumably there may be one particular document that ends up being quite pivotal for some purpose, but it's more, I suppose, the question about how extensive the capability to discover these documents actually is, and what that may say for other information that may be held by various agencies.
Right, and do you think that there should be then more transparency when it comes to breaches like this by governments, explaining, for example, in Australia, explaining to Australians what's happened and what the implications are?
Well, I think you've got to start out by acknowledging that the police and security and intelligence agencies have definitely got a legitimate concern to protect their operational methods and their sources, and to not put people at risk who are often doing a very difficult job undercover, whatever. And so you have to acknowledge that there are sort of a lot of areas where you can't really expect sort of total transparency. On the other hand, Alistair McGibbon from the Centre for Internet Security has called for greater transparency, and in particular mandatory disclosure breach notification laws that not just covering personal information sort of lost by both government and private sector, but basically a full range of the breaches to be revealed on the basis that we need to have probably a more open discussion about that, and a more realistic assessment about what level of security can actually be promised or relied on, and therefore what individuals and businesses and other governments can realistically expect in this area.
Okay, David Vaile, the University of New South Wales, thanks so much for your time.